Okay, thank you everybody for being here today. We are joined by Subrah, Head of Research from Greater Manchester Chamber, who will be covering the Q3 quarterly economic survey results. And we've also got Victoria, who's the Business Engagement Manager for HS2, who will cover the progression and the possibilities that HS2 can provide for local businesses. At the end of each talk by the speaker, we'll have questions and answers. So as I mentioned before, if you've got a question, please pop them in the box. The QES results are the first economic indicator of the quarter, published in advance of official figures and other private surveys. It consistently mirrors the trends in official data, and for this reason, the survey is closely watched by policymakers such as the Bank of England. This morning, Subrah will be analysing the data from our QES survey and provide an insight of economic activity in the local area and an overview of both manufacturing and service sectors compared to the wider region. So without further ado, I'll now hand over to Subrah. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I hope you can all hear me. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining, and thank you also for this opportunity to present the quarterly economic survey results directly to you. What I want to do this morning is to quickly run through the QES results for the South Cheshire Chamber region, but then I'll also provide some comparison with other regions in the Northwest, and there will also be the sectoral split that John was talking about, so splitting the sectors by manufacturing and services. Okay, so just a little bit on Cheshire East's economy. I did touch upon this during my previous presentation in the second quarter. This is an area of economic significance because it adds approximately 15 billion in gross value add every year. It has a workforce of about 189,000. And the key sectors are manufacturing and services. So manufacturing accounts for 1/3 of the economy. It's a very productive sector because it only accounts for 10% of employment. And services accounts for over 80% of the employment. So a significant employer within the region. There are 23,000 businesses, but here's the interesting thing about Cheshire East. Earnings and productivity are much higher than the Northwest average, which would be good news to you. So just to back up what John was talking in terms of what the QES is. So this is a business sentiment survey. It is a long-standing business confidence and sentiment survey. It was first run in the late 1980s. And since then, every year, we have been running the QES 4 times with pretty much the same question. So we have that rich historic time series of data that we can fall back upon. The QES is the first block off the block every quarter. The results are published, just at the end of the quarter, like we did for Greater Manchester last week, or at the very beginning of the next quarter. And national data catches up much, much later. In some cases, weeks, months later than when we publish the QES results. And so because of that, the QES is very widely watched. It's used by Treasury, Bank of England, the European Union, and so on. So what do we ask in the QES? The questions are primarily around economic performance and business activity levels. So we talk about sales, advance orders from both domestic customers and overseas customers. So we split the data by UK sales and export sales. We ask about recruitment intentions and any changes to the workforce, and then other important macroeconomic measures such as business investment, cash flow, any pressures that the business is facing at this moment in time, and so on. Okay, so that's on the QES. You can have a look at the survey questions, but please do remember the QES results are based on data that you members of chambers have supplied. And all I'm doing is kind of playing back the results with some added information, commentary, etc. So without you responding to the survey, this presentation and the analysis behind it would not be possible. So please continue to fill in the survey. John will be sending it out every quarter, and it is extremely important that you fill in the survey. There are a couple of other interesting insights from the QES and QES type surveys, which I'll get to in a moment. But first of all, a summary of the QES results for this quarter. So if you cast your mind back to June, when we had the second quarter's results, the second quarter's results fully reflected the economic consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic. And so we had historically low levels. All of the QES measures were at their lowest levels ever, even much lower than what those levels were during the peak of the 2008-2009 recession. Now, things have improved to an extent, but the economic impact of COVID-19 is still being felt. And so sales, turnover, revenues coming into the businesses, liquidity positions, cash positions, etc., are still rather affected adversely at this moment in time. However, there is a quarterly improvement, but here is another interesting insight that the QES data shows, which is that there was economic growth and an improvement in business activity levels just as lockdown was being relaxed. So 22nd of June, when a retail sector almost entirely reopened, and then the 4th of July of this year, when the hospitality sector reopened, there was a bounce back at that time, but since then economic activity levels have actually stalled. So that's another interesting insight that the QES data provides. Okay, one thing is that in the second quarter, the South Cheshire Chamber results were looking slightly better than the Northwest average, but this time around, okay, some of the measures are better than the Northwest average, other measures are on par, and then there are one or two measures which are actually lower than the average, but on the whole, they are on par. But some other Northwest regions did perform better in the third quarter. That is not necessarily a criticism of economic performance in Cheshire East. It is down to one or two things. Number one is the breakdown of the sectors within the region. So the business demography within a region obviously affects the economic performance. And so where you have a high concentration of service businesses, hospitality, etc., those are the sectors which have been badly affected at this time. And so they would perform worse than what other regions would if they had a very strong manufacturing base. And then the other issue is down to the sample size. So we had approximately 80 responses from the South Cheshire Chamber region. We had 1,100 across the Northwest. And then the split between how many responses we had from the services sector and the manufacturing sector also has an impact on the actual data. So just bear that in mind while you try to interpret the results. But generally, what we have noticed in this quarter is that manufacturing businesses are doing much better than service sector businesses. And that is a very important issue because it is the services sector that has been struggling. So growth has appeared within the manufacturing subsectors. And that is good news for areas where there is a strong manufacturing base, such as South Cheshire. Okay. So this is just a comparison. So I said, the results are on par. One or two measures are better off. Other measures are worse. So here's just a comparison with other regions in the Northwest. So it would seem that the best performing region in the third quarter is Lancashire. So Lancashire excluding Greater Manchester. With domestic sales balances for this manufacturing sector. We will get these into detail with all of these measures, but just a highlight here. So for the manufacturing sector, it would seem that Lancashire, excluding Greater Manchester, is doing the best. Cheshire as a whole and Liverpool City region, the color map is wrong there, so please forgive me for that. So Liverpool City region, which is the purple, and Cheshire, which is the orange, those seem to be the least performing, and Greater Manchester is sort of somewhere in between. Very interestingly, Cumbria alone has a positive balance. So please do bear in mind, there is a zero line here. Anything below zero indicates decline, contraction, etc., and anything above zero indicates growth. And while we are at this, just a note on what these numbers actually mean. QES results are presented as balances. And it is the difference between the number of positive responses and the number of negative responses for a particular question. So in the case of the domestic sales question, we asked businesses, did your sales improve this quarter? Did they stay the same, or did they actually worsen compared to the previous quarter? And so where the number, the balance, is a negative figure, it means that a lot more businesses said their sales had declined than those businesses saying their sales had stayed the same or have actually increased. So for every region in the Northwest except Cumbria, there seems to have been declines and contraction in this quarter for the manufacturing sector. However, when you come to the services sector, the picture is entirely different. So first of all, the numbers are a lot worse. So the balances are all well into negative territory, including for Cumbria. So for manufacturing, it was plus 25. For services for Cumbria, it's minus 18 approximately. And so this is where South Cheshire Chamber results seem to be slightly worse. So we are at minus 50, but the average here seems to be in the 20s. So that is something just to bear in mind. Again, I am trying to interpret the results based on the data, and it would be extremely useful to have your feedback to understand whether this is what you are finding from your on-the-ground experience of running your businesses, speaking to your customers, etc. And that insight is extremely valuable to you. So if you do have any insights, comments, feedback, please do post them in the chat function. I'm very keen to learn from your experience as well. Okay, so manufacturing is doing better than services because you have the better numbers here. And at the same time, there are some regions which are outliers, but generally, we see that the economic impact of COVID-19 we have not come past that. And we are still feeling the effects. And you would have no doubt seen there is talk of introducing more restrictions in the next week. Those might be kind of national level restrictions, breaking the country down into 3 tiers based on the infection rates, etc. That doesn't necessarily bode well for the economy, particularly for the services sector. But we will see what happens next week. Here's an interesting insight based on the QES results. This is me blowing my trumpet to a bit, but not entirely. So yesterday, the Office for Budget Responsibility gave evidence to the Treasury Select Committee. And one of the things that they said is that economic recovery looked V-shaped until the beginning of the autumn. But since then, the economy has lost steam, which means we are going to have a much more muted, very slow, gradual recovery. Interestingly, I have been saying that since July. Now, that is not necessarily to my credit because we have been doing in Greater Manchester tracker surveys, so fortnightly surveys in addition to the QES, just to track how the economy is performing. So between the second quarter's QES and the third quarter's QES, we did 5 fortnightly tracker surveys. And the results of the tracker surveys showed that any improvement in economic growth and business activity levels took place late in June and early in July. But since then, the economy has actually lost steam. So the QES results showed this way back in August, and that is what the Office for Budgetary Responsibility confirmed yesterday to the Treasury Select Committee. And this is something to bear in mind. QES and QES-related surveys are extremely powerful in actually giving us a forward view of what is happening in the UK economy. We are looking specifically into Northwest or Greater Manchester or South Cheshire Chamber region, but this is true for the entire country. And so this is why please do fill in the QES every quarter, because it gives us an advanced view of what's happening in the economy months before what official data actually would confirm. Okay, so just bear that in mind. So the V-shaped recovery immediately after the second quarter, QES coming here, and then the economy losing steam. Okay, that's an interesting insight to bear in mind. Also, when you interpret the remaining charts as well, because you would see that between the second quarter and the third quarter, there is actually some growth. But in reality, it is not necessarily a comparison of the 2 data points. What has happened is there has been an improvement in the first part of this quarter, the third quarter, and then since then there has been a decline actually. So do bear that in mind as well. Okay, so now let's just get into the actual results for the South Cheshire Chamber region. I'm going to look into some of the key highlights here. So first off is domestic demand. So this is probably the main thing for a lot of businesses. Their UK sales. And so what are UK sales looking like at the moment? So in the case of South Cheshire Chamber, as we looked at in one of the previous slides, the balance relating to the manufacturing sector is at -20, and the balance relating to the services sector is at minus 50. So the services sector is doing a lot worse than the manufacturing sector. But that is no surprise to you, because the worst affected sectors by the COVID pandemic all happen to be service businesses rather than manufacturing necessarily. So how does that then compare with the Northwest average? So in the case of the Northwest average, the manufacturing sector balance is at minus 11, so slightly better than what the South Cheshire balance is. And it's a similar picture for services as well. So the Northwest balance is at minus 21 compared to minus 50. So again, please do remember, this is not necessarily a criticism of economic performance in the region. This is down to the two factors that I mentioned. Number one, the business demography within any particular region, and then two, the sample, the breakdown of sample size by sector. That invariably does have an impact on what the actual results are. But these results are extremely reliable. And so we know that there has been an improvement in this quarter compared to the previous. So that's on domestic sales. What about exports and international sales? For exports, this is where there is some cause for concern here. So the services balance, and we do export. The UK is a large service exporter. That includes financial services, professional services, etc. So the big UK consultancy companies, financial companies, etc., do have lots of clients in different parts of the world. And Cheshire does have that kind of concentration of businesses which happen to be in the financial services sector as well. So bearing that in mind, this balance, which is slightly lower than what it was in the previous quarter, is some cause for concern. And I asked myself, is it just the pandemic, or is it also an indication of Brexit happening, which is just, 70 days away or so? Is there an impact of Brexit within some of this data as well? So that's just some cause for concern there. But manufacturing clearly doing better, and that is comparable with the Northwest average as well. So manufacturing is at minus 23, South Cheshire is at minus 25, but the services exports have significantly decreased. And so this is something to keep an eye on going forward. Okay, so that's on customer demand, domestic and international. How is cash flow looking like at the moment? And so this is probably the single biggest concern for many businesses. Liquidity was affected for various reasons. Number one, sales went down, revenues went down, but also businesses had suppliers and customers actually closed down, probably leading to invoices not being paid on time. So liquidity positions were significantly adverse throughout the last 6 months. But this is where South Cheshire Chamber results are actually much better than the Northwest average. So for the services businesses, the balance is at minus 15 compared to the minus 22 for the Northwest as a whole. And then for manufacturing, it is at a minus 11 compared to minus 18.9. So clearly there are some areas in which businesses within the South Cheshire Chamber region are actually doing way better than what the Northwest average happens to be at the moment. So on cash positions, again, if you have any comments or feedback, please do let me know. I'm keen to know whether this is actually what you're finding on the ground. And then another important macroeconomic indicator, which is capacity utilization. So the question that we ask in relation to operational capacity is, are businesses operating at near or full capacity, or are they operating at way below the full capacity? This is a very important macroeconomic measure for various reasons. Number one, if capacity utilization is low in any particular business, then that means the business will have no room for expansion. It will probably have to shed a workforce. So there are probably prospects for employment. But also they might have to reduce prices. So there are deflationary pressures arising from low capacity utilization. At the moment, across the board, for all sectors and for all regions in the country, there is a lot of spare capacity in the economy because capacity utilization is actually on the lower side. Having said that, again, capacity utilization is more or less on par with the Northwest average. So for services, it's at 27.9. Within the Northwest, it is at 25. And then for manufacturing, it's at 27. But actually, capacity utilization for the South Cheshire Chamber region for manufacturing sector is on the lower side. And as I was saying earlier in my very first slide, 1/3 of Cheshire East's economy is manufacturing. And so when manufacturing capacity utilization is on the lower side and their sales are low, then clearly that has a macroeconomic impact within that region. So this is something that we will keep an eye on. Most policy commentators are actually very much focused on this at the moment, because unless we can ramp up capacity utilization, there is no prospect for a further business investment. But we will get to business investment in a moment. Okay, so business prospects. And the first thing to start with is business confidence. A very interesting picture here shows that kind of the stark difference between the services sectors and the manufacturing businesses. So in terms of turnover, the question that we ask here is, are you as a business confident that you will be able to maintain your revenues at the current levels in the next 6 to 12 months? And a significant number, approximately 60% of the businesses said they, within the services sector, said they will not be able to maintain their revenues at the current levels. That's despite small reductions because of the pandemic. But when you look into manufacturing, the picture is entirely different, because this is a positive number compared to the negative number here. So in the case of manufacturing businesses within your region, there are lots of businesses actually saying they will be able to maintain their turnover, which is very good news. Compares very well with that Northwest average, with both of these numbers actually above the zero line. So there are positive numbers here. The concern is clearly for the services sector. So that's on the ability of businesses to maintain their turnover and revenue in the next 6 to 12 months. But that's not the only thing. You can maintain turnover and revenue, but are you actually going to be able to sustain your margins? And we do have a question on that. And the question we ask is, as a business, are you confident that you will be able to maintain your profitability and margins in the next 6 to 12 months? Again, that stark difference between manufacturing and services. Manufacturing showing positive numbers here within South Cheshire. Services showing a significantly low negative number. But compare that with the Northwest average. Both of these numbers are actually negative. So this is, again, another area where South Cheshire businesses are actually performing way better than the Northwest average. So you have a positive number here for manufacturing. Actually, the number here is well in the negative region. Services also doing quite poorly at the moment. So again, the interesting mix here about what business confidence is at the moment within your region. Okay, so how does higher business confidence translate into your intention to invest? Investment in capital goods such as machinery, equipment, etc. is an important one, but so is investment in, say, workforce development, training, and that sort of thing. Now, one thing is certain, at the moment, you have lots of spare capacity in the economy, liquidity positions and cash flow is affected, sales aren't doing great, and clearly the intention to invest in machinery, equipment, etc. is low. So not many businesses are actually willing to invest at this moment. And so the balance relating to capital expenditure within the South Cheshire Chamber region is -30 for services, it's -5 for manufacturing. A similar picture here, in fact, a worse picture here for the Northwest average. So the balances are again well in the negative territory. And this is a cause for concern because business investment is extremely important for any expansion of business activities, for adopting new technologies, but also for recruitment and adding to the workforce. So when we have an eye on unemployment, especially with that 31st of October deadline, investment in the business is actually extremely important. So at the moment, no prospects for capital expenditure. Based on that, what is the outlook for employment and labor market data? So the question that we ask is, in the last quarter, the last 3 months, did you as a business actually increase your workforce? One thing to bear in mind in relation to this question, under normal circumstances, a positive number would actually mean recruitment and newer additions to the workforce. But in the case of this quarter, the quarter that just gone, increases in the workforce might mean two things. One, genuine recruitment and adding to the workforce, but it could also mean employees being brought off furlough. Whatever it is, there is some good news here for the manufacturing sector, reflecting that higher business confidence within the manufacturing sector. So a good number of businesses in the manufacturing sector actually saying they have increased their workforce. Services, on the other hand, saying they are not planning to increase their workforce at this moment. That compares very well, especially for the manufacturing sector, with the Northwest average as well. So I think the prospects for employment within your manufacturing base is actually higher, but services will remain constrained. And one of the key questions that many policymakers are asking now is, if there are going to be additional restrictions, okay, we are going to lose staff because of this viability business concept that the Chancellor announced in his winter economy statement a few days ago. So there are going to be job losses, no doubt. But then the outlook towards the festive season. So Christmas is usually a time when there is short-term employment opportunities for lots of young people particularly. But what are the prospects for festive season trading? And in turn, what are the prospects for employment increases towards the festive trading? That's an important consideration here. But the fact that the services sector is doing not very well at this moment actually appears to indicate that we are not going to have festive shopping or festive season related recruitment. Okay, we then asked businesses, actually, did you attempt to recruit in this quarter? Very interestingly, 15% of the businesses said they had within the services, and 40% of the businesses said within the manufacturing sector, they said they had actually attempted to recruit. Again, a slightly similar picture in the Northwest here. This is very interesting. So it would seem that maybe businesses are changing direction. So we have had examples of businesses who have actually changed their main activity. So we had businesses like Manchester Gin, Didsbury Gin, etc. They actually left out gin manufacturing and then went into hand sanitizers, ethyl alcohol, etc. for the healthcare sector. So perhaps that has led to some employment opportunities, but this is good news. Okay, that's my presentation done. I'm very keen to hear your feedback. But again, if you have any questions, I will try and answer them. But I'm going to hand over to John now.
Hi, thank you very much, Subrah. Excellent, here we go. So, locally it appears that there is a view that the Chancellor's job support scheme may not stave off the redundancies which were widely predicted for the end of October when the furlough scheme ends. Is there any suggestion nationally or from other regions that this may not be the case?
No, I agree. We have recently been having some interesting discussions about this viability concept that I just mentioned. So the assumption behind the job support scheme seems to be this. The business must be viable. The business must be able to keep the employee on for 1/3 of their normal hours. That's not possible for many businesses in sectors, including Premier League football. So these are actually businesses, the big event venues, etc., are all very profitable generally. But at the moment, they can't hold events because of the restrictions that are in place. So I fully agree. Those businesses will not be able to reopen and keep their staff on for even 1/3 of the time, which means the job support scheme is not going to help prevent job losses at the end of this month, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you very much. And just one more question. Is there any recognisable acknowledgement in the survey forecasts that there will be difficult months ahead for businesses due to a no-deal Brexit, or even just the uncertainty from our current position?
Yes. So I think the the results reflect both the effects of the pandemic, kind of the lingering effects, but also some omens about Brexit. What is interesting within the results, especially in the context of Brexit, is the impact on service exports. And we have been speaking to a small number of businesses recently who have actually said, these are service businesses, they have said, actually they are losing clients based in Europe. There seemed to be some uplift towards the end of last year, the beginning of this year. And so I think the key concerns for many businesses will be their ability to maintain their client base in Europe. And so unfortunately, again, yes, there is going to be some uncertainty, and that is going to have an impact, no doubt. That is probably going to last into 2021. The slight difficulty we may have is when we look at the results as such, we won't necessarily be able to understand whether a particular business has said their kind of negative responses are because of COVID or because of Brexit, or perhaps because of both.
Okay, thank you. And we've just had one more question in. It says, I have a leisure business, which is a marina, and what you are reporting on chimes with what we are experiencing, which is recent COVID restriction in the region is keeping customers at home. A lot of the boat sales rely on the housing market, which is strong at the moment. Are there any indications that the housing market will stay strong?
Okay, prospects for the housing market at the moment seem very good. You of course have that stamp duty concession and so on in play at the moment. There seems to be lots of activity within the housing market at the time. And you may also be aware that in 2021, there is a new Help to Buy scheme that is going to launch. So if you know what the previous Help to Buy scheme, which actually provided the 20% loan, there is a similar scheme. It's from my understanding, it is slightly less generous than the first scheme. But there is that scheme as well. So, some additional boost to the housing market. So it is likely that the housing market will stay positive. And within the spatial planning for many regions now, there is going to be emphasis on the housing sector as a tool to actually stimulate employment within individual regions. So I think there would be some good news for the housing sector in the next 12, 15, 18 months.
Okay, thank you again, Subrah, and everyone who submitted questions. Next up, we have Victoria from HS2, who will be giving us an update on the progression and business opportunities involved with it. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Victoria. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, John. I'll just get my screen up. Brilliant. Well, thank you for inviting me here today. Just to introduce myself and my role at HS2. So I work as the Business Engagement Manager. And so that means I work closely with the HS2 contractors and local business organisations such as the Chamber to help raise awareness of the opportunities there are for local businesses and try and help them understand and navigate the HS2 supply chain. My role also includes encouraging our workers, so those out on the ground, both office staff and site staff, to make the most of the offer of local businesses and think locally as they're working and living in the areas. So all my activity is basically to support local businesses to get involved and benefit from HS2 being in their area. So today I was just going to provide a bit of an overview of the current activity of HS2 and its progress, and then give a little bit more insight into what this activity can mean for opportunities for local businesses, and that's businesses of all types and sizes, and the different ways that, depending on your business type, you might be able to get involved and benefit from HS2 being in the area. So to start with, just a bit of an update on where we are as a project. So over the past decade, we've been designing the railway, consulting with communities and seeking the powers through Parliament to begin construction. So in April this year, we got what is called Notice to Proceed for Phase 1, and that's the route between Birmingham and London. And that means that we're now beginning to construct the railway, building the bridges, boring the tunnels and laying the tracks for that section of route. Looking more locally, so for phase 2A, which extends the railway from the West Midlands to Crewe, the bill is progressing through Parliament. So there was a slight delay as a result of COVID, as you can appreciate, but the Select Committee hearings have now completed. They completed on the 23rd of September, and we're expecting royal assent in late 2020, so late this year, and that will give us the powers to build this section of the railway. I think I'd also note there that following the independent review that we had on the project earlier this year by Doug Oakerby and the publication of our full business case, the government intends to align the opening of the phase 2A section with phase 1, which is looking to be operational between 2029 and 2033. And then looking just slightly north, so phase 2B, which continues the route to the northwest towards Manchester, and then towards the northeast for Leeds via the East Midlands. That's looking to be completed by 2040. So along that section of the route, we've been engaging with communities to discuss how, as a project, we can develop and collecting the kind of formal and informal views on our proposals. So following the Oakerby review again, we're now working really closely with the National Infrastructure Commission on an integrated rail plan to ensure that this phase 2B section of the route is fully integrated in some of the other programmes in the area, such as High Speed North and Midlands Connect. And we also announced this week the launch of the phase 2B Western leg design refinement consultation. So this will set out some of the technical design stages. And it's an important opportunity for people along the stretch of route to Manchester to feed into their views on the design of HS2 in their area. And the outcome will help inform the design of the railway and the development of this as part of the parliamentary bill when that gets deposited. So in terms of ongoing activity, it is a difficult time, obviously, with coronavirus still present, but we are continuing to work on site to make sure that we can get what we need to get done now, but that can making sure that that happens safely within the Public Health England guidance. And we actually recognise, HS2 being a big project is a really part of that economic recovery piece. It's going to underpin the construction and engineering sectors for the next 20 years, and those sectors support nearly 10% of the UK jobs. So, it's a big opportunity for us to continue to bring benefit to local economies. And in phase 1 alone, we're going to support 22,000 jobs in the coming years. And with that comes 400,000 supply chain opportunities for businesses. And those businesses, I'd stress, are all different types of businesses of all different sizes as well. So just touching a little bit more on 2A. So the slide you can see just shows the various work today and when that's likely to happen. You'll see the 2A route-wide ground investigations are starting next month, and there'll be some further environmental surveys taking place as we prepare for that construction once we get that royal assent and the all go. The actual work on the ground, such as utility diversion, environmental and enabling work, will commence around Q3 next year. So that's where you'll start to see more activity in the region and more people out on site. So I'm now just going to touch on how we're actually building a railway. I think that's really important to understand in terms of business, so that you can look at how you can get involved. So as an organisation, HS2 Limited was tasked to deliver that railway, and we're breaking up that work into multiple contracts, and they're going to be across large construction companies. And these are the contractors that will be delivering most of the work on our behalf. And they're the ones that will be out and about on the ground. So most of the opportunities for businesses will come through these contractors. Given the businesses, it's likely to be given where the project is interesting in that supply chain. The likely opportunities in the kind of immediate future are going to be through these phase 1 contractors, so the ones working between London and the West Midlands, and also their subcontractors. And these contractors wrapping up their work now. Since they've got notice to proceed, they're really starting to mobilise their construction sites. Construction activities are really starting to happen, and with that, they're really going out to the market to find the supplies that they need and the services that they need to both build the railway, but also set up the site and support their workforce. So some of the key contractors to be aware of, we've got Belfort BC Vinci joint venture, so BBV, and they're doing the main work between Birmingham and North Warwickshire. Then we've got a line joint venture, and they're delivering the kind of Chiltern Tunnel associated work. EKFB are Kia, and they're delivering the main work from Warwickshire to the M25. And then when you look close more into the London area, then you've got SDS Railways, and their work is close within the M25. But as I mentioned earlier, there will be opportunities that will arise more locally with the early environmental work and the early civil work contracts that have been awarded to Belfast BC across to but they're going to be looking more into 2021 and further afield. So each of these large contracts that are awarded are going to create thousands of opportunities for businesses down the supply chain. As I mentioned, we're expecting around 400,000 supply chain opportunities to be created just for phase one, and we're seeing about 2/3 of these should be with SME organisations. And as an organisation, as a project, we want to maximise the benefits that the project will bring to local communities where we're working, and making sure that businesses located in the areas where we're building the railway are involved is a real big crucial part of that, and something that we're really driving both with HS2 but also with all our contractors to make sure that we achieve. And we also recognise that local businesses, smaller businesses can actually bring a lot of benefit to us as a project. They've got really innovative ideas, ways of working, there's flexibility, often low environmental impact, things associated with logistics, and also there's greater cost efficiencies. So we really do want local businesses to be at the heart of our supply chain, and so we work really closely with the contractors to drive that involvement and engage with local businesses to help them access those opportunities and understand what it is that is needed in order to get them involved. And we're already seeing that happen. We're already using over 1,000 businesses who sit next to the line of the new railway, and that counts for about half of our current supply chain, which, as I said, we're expecting to really ramp up and grow over the next year or so. And then looking more locally, we've got over 100 businesses that have already been involved in the supply chain across Staffordshire and Cheshire, and around 85% of these are SMEs. And then just to, put some colour on it, we've got some pictures on the slide. You can see are examples of some of the local businesses that have already got involved. So on the top right, we've got Stephen and his team from Total Reclaims Demolitions, and they helped clear one of our sites just outside Birmingham. And they worked with Kirsty on the bottom left, and she helps run a small social enterprise, which helps to support vulnerable people to get back into work. And they've for reuse and recycling within the community on the site. And then on the bottom left, we've got we've got Genie Printing. So they're a small company near one of the new station site in Birmingham again, and they've been printing the newsletters, some of the plans and materials that our enabling work contractor has been needing. And then on the top left is Trinity Assets, and they're a Cold Hill-based businesses in Warwickshire. And they've been providing accommodation for a number of the HS2 workers in the area. And they're a really great example of a business that has not got involved through the formal supply chain, but has seen HS2 as an opportunity. They've gone out on site, they've met the people on site, they've promoted their business, they've promoted their service, and as a result, they've really seen their business grow by providing the demand that there is for all the workers that are now working in the area. And so these examples just start to show some of the wide range of opportunities that there are, and that will continue to emerge within the HS2 supply chain over a number of years. So Looking a bit more closely at the different types of supplies and services that are contractors, but also the subcontractors will need to build the railway, but also to mobilise and manage our construction sites, and also support the workforce that will be in the areas and on these sites. So creative services, they're things like photographers, printers, signage companies. Then we've got food and catering, and that not only includes things like kitchen setups and catering on site, but also mobile catering services who visit the site, catering for meetings and events, and also places for the workforce to go and get lunch on the local high street if they're nearby, promoting your business so that they know that you'll get there and that you can use it. We want to encourage that to happen when it's obviously safe for them to do so. Then we've got accommodation, and that could be modular blocks on the site, but also, importantly, it's things like B&Bs, hotels, private rentals. All these things will be needed for office staff and construction staff that may be visiting the area frequently, or also just staying for long periods of time away from home to deliver this work. Then employee services covers things that those working in the area on the rail will be looking for. So they're things like for health and well-being, so hairdressers, gyms, dentists, and places to spend time with their family. So lots of different types of opportunities there for them to kind of spend their time outside of working hours. Then transport and logistics, that could be anything from private taxi hire, on and off site transport, but also logistics planning, transport management services for the sites to minimise impact and make sure that that's happening safely. And then trade and construction. So that's not only the big supplies that we need to actually construct the railway, but it's also things that we need to set up and run the compound. So it could be small building materials, but also electricians, plumbing services that will be needed both to set up the site, but also to maintain the site as and when, there's always an emergency of some sort and that sort of thing. So we're looking for local businesses to be able to provide that service for us. And then there's all the site services. So that's things like cleaners, soft landscaping, waste management, site security. So lots of different opportunities for lots of different types of businesses. So some of these opportunities will come through the direct contractors, so some of the bigger ones that I raised earlier, but some of the others will come through subcontractors who might have won a framework to deliver a particular aspect of that work, and so on and so forth. So where your business sits within that supply chain will depend on your size, what you can offer, and what we're looking for. But there should be opportunities at all the different levels for everyone. So looking at how you can get involved with these wide range of opportunities, there will be different ways that your local business can get involved, both throughout the supply chain, so that could be bidding and winning for contracts, to also regular purchase orders and that worker choice piece. So businesses really need to think about where you might sit within the supply chain and then approach the route that you can take to make sure that you get involved and can make sure that your business gets sight of and of any opportunities that might be. So in terms of the contract space, as with all major projects, we have to make sure that our contracts are open, they're fair, they're transparent, but they're competitively tendered for. We want to make sure that we're getting the best possible suppliers for the jobs. So contractors and our subcontractors use a platform called Compete For to advertise all their opportunities. It's completely free to register and bid for opportunities on this platform. So it's really important if you're interested in that space to sign up and you'll be able to set alerts and you'll be able to see any opportunities that come through. As I mentioned, at the moment, some of those are quite big because we're at that early stage of mobilisation. But as the project progresses, there'll be smaller opportunities coming through there, and also locally they'll start to come through in the kind of coming years. Because of the scale of reach of HS2, one of our goals is to leave that positive legacy for the industry. So that's looking at raising the bar and the standards on things like health and safety, equality, diversity and inclusion, environmental impacts, And so that does mean that when people are bidding for work and processes, they need to demonstrate to us how they can deliver and support us in reaching those goals. So it's really important that you understand what those are, and that you understand how your business and demonstrate how your business can reach and help us reach those aspirations. But what I would say is don't let this put you off as a smaller business. So our aspirations and our requirements in contracts reflect the value of the contract, the size of the contract, and the types of businesses that would be interested in that. So don't think that there's going to be really strict restrictions for a smaller contract if you're interested in that space, but it's also a really good opportunity for you as a business to get support from HS2 contractors to upskill your business if there's areas where you're interested in developing but you haven't had an opportunity to do so. And we also have various webinars that help businesses do that, but we're also partnered with the Supply Chain Sustainability School, and that's a free online resource that we recognise as part of our procurement process, where you can gain qualifications, certifications on things such as environmental activities, health and safety policies, and all those things are recognised by us, but also help for other projects that you might be interested in the area. Now, kind of moving on from this formal contract space, I don't want to underestimate the opportunities that there will be for local businesses to get involved outside of this formal kind of bidding supply chain world. So the contractors and subcontractors will be getting ad hoc or regular supplies or services through purchase orders. So this could be things like event space and catering, videography, specific signage or printing needs. So for these, making sure that you're engaged with the programme, you're linked in with the business engagement team and the contractors to make sure that we know about your business, we know what you can offer. So if we know that you're there and understand what you can offer, it means that we are looking for something in the market in that area. We already have that list of businesses that we can go to and say, we're looking to deliver this. Is this something you can help with? Let's get in touch and discuss further to see if it's something that will work with your company. And then finally, at peak construction, we're going to need 30,000 people to build and design this railway at peak. So many of them are going to need places to stay, food to eat, products to buy. So offering services to our workers by letting us know about your business and what can offer is a really important way to help us support local businesses. Obviously, under current challenges of COVID, we are looking to ensure that workers use and support local businesses safely. And again, this is something that will grow as an opportunity for QA as more construction sites come online and we have more and more workers in the area. But I know, for instance, that we've already got contractors with offices in Crewe, for instance, so there are workers already starting to appear in those regions. And so these opportunities are really about helping you promoting your business to us so that we can share and promote that for you with the contractors and the workers on site. So we really expect this space to grow with the commencement of those environmental works, the enabling works in the area, which will start later in 2021. So the next step, so what are the key things you need to be looking at, considering if you're interested in getting involved? So the first thing is we regularly hold events and webinars for businesses with an update on what's happening with the project, but also around some of the skills and values that you might need. So we provide guidance and help, resources, and we also work closely with chambers and other business organisations to deliver that. So if there's something that you might not have done before, so top tips for bidding, guidance on what we're expecting, things such as making sure that you use case studies to demonstrate your commitment to health and safety, how you package up some of the things that you might be doing but might not recognise as something that's really important to us to demonstrate as part of that bidding process to really help your business stand out. Then for formal contracts, as I mentioned, we want everyone to go on to Compete For and register, and the link is on the slide. And that's really important if you want to see any of these formal contract opportunities. Again, it's completely free. You can tailor your alerts And we've also got online a guide and introduction to how to use Compete4 if it's something you've never done before, to make sure you can help get the most of it. And there's lots of other opportunities on there as well outside of HS2. I think it's also important to add there that at the moment some of the contracts might be quite big, but what you can do is you can see who is winning a contract, which you then might be able to get in touch with that person directly and offer your service to that subcontractor. So it gives you an insight into where the programme is, what businesses are winning work, and then you can look at how you can directly contact those businesses. And then importantly, for businesses that are local to the area but also might be purchase order worker choice space, as I said, it's important to let us know that you're here, let us know what your offer is, and that's around putting yourself on our local business map. So you can do that at the link on the screen on the HS2 website, and this will make sure that our contractors know that you're in the area. It allows you to set out your offer to us, and then we share that and promote that through our supply chain for you. And also it just helps us keep you up to date with the programme and make sure that any relevant opportunities you're linked in on. And then we also, as I said, we work really closely with chambers and other business groups. They can often provide lots of help around these sorts of things as well, and advice and guidance. And we're linked in with them, so if there's something that you're interested in, you're not sure where to go or what to do, then you can either contact us or the chamber, and we can work together to try and get you the answer that you need. And then we've got the free resources. There's loads of resources online on the HS2 website for local businesses. There's a digital guide which explains in a bit more detail some of the things I've gone through today. There's a whole webinar series on there which focuses on how to make the most of things like Compete4, how to use that, and how to get involved and use the Supply Chain Sustainability School and all the qualifications you get out there. So there's lots of resources there available for you to use. So hopefully that's provided you with a bit of insight of the types of potential opportunities, the different ways you might be able to get involved. So I'll now pass back over to John, and thank you very much.
Hi, Victoria. Thank you very much for that. We've had a question in. Given the recent failures of large construction companies, such as Poachings locally and Carillion nationally, what protection has HS2 put in place to ensure that we do not see major disruption to the project for a main contractor failure?
So with all our contracts, there's a really stringent process around qualifying for those big contract awards, to ensure that those companies have the ability to deliver that work. I think on the smaller scale, for smaller businesses, all those contractors have to sign up to what is a small payment charter, and that's a commitment to ensure that they pay the local businesses in their supply chain on time, within the specified things in their contract. So I know that late payments can be sometimes a challenge for smaller businesses with that cash flow, and so we've made that commitment, and we've put that commitment on our supply chain to make sure that businesses are paid on time as they need to be.
Excellent, thank you very much. And then we had another one under phase 2A. Work is well underway in Birmingham city centre, covering the HS2 station and surrounds. There appears to be some way to go before the rail link is ready. But using these time schedules for this phase, when can we expect work to commence on the Crewe interchange site?
So the phase 2A section, which is the section from the West Midlands to Crewe, has been integrated in a way into the phase 1 timeframe. So we're expecting that to open in 2029, 2033, within that year timeframe. So as I said, we've got work already starting in the area. So the early works contractors will be out and about probably from July next year. And they're basically the people who will be clearing some of the way for that construction work to happen in the region. So putting out some of the mitigation things like planting trees, moving some of the ecology sites, and just making the way for the next contractor to come in. And the other work contractors, so the early works, are also going through their design work at the moment, so they'll be doing that probably for the next year. So working on those detailed designs to make sure that when we get on site, everything is thought through and we're ready to build the railway. So that's going to start happening, and you'll see more people on site probably from Q3 next year, with the mindset that it'll be completed by 2029, 2033.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you for that. And also thank you to Subrah, some incredibly useful information there. I hope that everybody here today found this webinar useful. As mentioned before, it will be on our YouTube account shortly. Dominic will be sending a feedback form regarding our online events, and we would really appreciate your feedback on those. We'd also really like to hear what future events and webinars you would find useful and you wish the Chamber to cover.